For years, we worried about a war with the Soviet Union.
But since the fall of communism, some of the republics in what was the Soviet Union have turned into young democracies. Our John Iender just visited the city of Lviv in the Ukraine on a National Guard peace mission. For tonight's special assignment, you'll meet our former face-to-face.
If you lived during the Cold War, this is what you feared. For decades, Americans worried about the might of the Soviet Union, about an attack like this. The Soviets trained huge armies and kept them ready to fight. So did we. For decades, we played a dangerous game of chicken until the game suddenly changed. There is no greater symbol of America's victory over communism than the crumbling of the Berlin Wall. From that debris, former Soviet republics like the Ukraine have struggled to rebuild, to light the fire of freedom.
The units from the United States of America.
This month, Californians joined 16 nations in Operation Peace Shield. Our National Guard soldiers came to the Ukraine to practice fighting side by side with their former enemy. Tresh from North Highlands found a lot more than he expected.
These people were very friendly, and I was totally shocked and surprised.
For a week, 300 soldiers played war games and got to know the human beings behind the uniforms. We also got a close look at how the Ukraine is struggling to survive after communism.
Behind me is one of the remnants of the Cold War, a Russian Hind attack helicopter. And yet here it sits, as it has for months, because there's no fuel to fly it.
Inflation is now the Ukraine's new enemy.
The economy is not very strong, but we try to survive anyway.
Will it get stronger?
I think so. I hope so.
Our National Guard soldiers brought the new weapon of war, the computer. It was one small step for the Ukrainians to learn how the Western world fights not only with bullets, but with keystrokes.
These guys have never seen computers in the field before. They don't believe it can work. These people are amazed at how quickly reports can go back and forth. And so, yeah.
Right to the guy in the foxhole?
Absolutely. Out to the field.
But the trade goes both ways.
Their equipment is different than ours, but we're learning how to use their equipment. It has a lot of capabilities, just like ours does. And that's the good experience of it, is working with all these other nations and learning how they operate and learning how to work together.
It is hard to forget sometimes that these guys were once our mortal enemy. You ever think you'd come here and work side by side with your...
Not in this lifetime. I'm an old Cold War soldier, 29 years, and it's always been adversarial up till now.
The Soviets may be gone from the Ukraine, but their memory lives on, and often not in a happy way. This is one of the oldest cemeteries in the area.
It is not recorded how many millions of soldiers died under the weight of communism. There are thousands buried here. Every day they are visited by those who lived under the Red Star and who cannot forget that suffering. Today's Ukrainian army is young and bright. Women now serve and even wear that symbol of the West, the miniskirt. California National Guard soldiers are now taking on global duties. We've seen them keeping the peace in Bosnia, helping build humanitarian projects in Panama, and now in the Ukraine, they're sharing their skills with a generation of soldiers for whom the Cold War may be only a chapter in the history books.
The notion that we would be standing here in these surroundings, having coalition discussions on all kinds of things about soldiering is just simply mind-boggling.
Different political factions in the world are sometimes enemies, but it's rare that when you really discuss personal relationships, interpersonal relationships with people, people are people. Their main concern here is their family and their future, and it's very similar, obviously, to what our hopes and dreams are.
But every year in California, some of those dreams get crushed. Floods wash us away, fires burn us out, earthquakes shake us to the bone. And it's those same National Guard soldiers who come to our rescue. Here in the Ukraine at this Peace Shield exercise, we also traded skills on how to deal with the battles that nature throws our way. Remember, only 100 or so miles away from here is the site of Ukraine's biggest disaster, the explosion of Chernobyl's nuclear reactor. This exercise was televised live in Europe. Former Soviet soldiers were invited to watch, to bring their families. East meets West.
I'm very impressed by American people, by their hospitality, and they're so kind.
The way the world is today, these are the types of operations we're going to be doing more and more of. Maintain peace and stability around the world and working with all kinds of different nations.
Changes the way I look at the world. I mean, I really think that we're rewriting history here.
On special assignment with the California National Guard in the Ukraine, John Iender, KOVR 13 News.
By the way, some Northern California farmers and ranchers went along on this National Guard peace mission. For tomorrow's special assignment at 5 and at 10, we'll visit a Ukrainian farm and show you how some of its products may someday end up in your refrigerator. By the way, some Northern California farmers and ranchers went along on this National Guard peace mission. For tomorrow's special assignment at 5 and at 10, we'll visit a Ukrainian farm and show you how some of its products may someday end up in your refrigerator. Northern California is a magnet for Ukrainian immigrants who come here looking for a better life after suffering under communism.
This month, our California National Guard took some local leaders to Ukraine on a peace mission, and John Iender went along. In his special assignment tonight, John takes a look at how two cultures suddenly have a whole lot in common.
After years of Soviet domination, the Ukrainians are finally seeing firsthand what a free market economy is all about.
If you ever have any doubt that capitalism has defeated communism fair and square, come right here to the Central Market.
Here, there is plenty to buy at competitive prices. Gone are the days when food was scarce. And on just about every corner, you now see American influence, from potato chips to Coca-Cola.
They want it. They're all very hungry for it, Western products, and you see it here.
The Ukraine is a lot like our valley. Rich soils and productive farms that make it the food basket of Europe. Part of that bounty is thanks to Ukrainian farmers like Miroslav and his father. In just 4 years, they have turned this former collective farm into a model of Western agriculture. 200 acres of sugar beets and grain. Miroslav also raises hogs and cows and buys and sells machinery. This combine is German. This tractor is Russian. If something breaks, he has to make the part himself. Our National Guard brought a group of Northern California farmers to the Ukraine for this exchange visit with Miroslav. Casey Stone is a Yolo County rancher.
What do you think of this guy, farmer to farmer?
I'm very impressed. He's got a lot of tenacity and the willingness to stick it out, and that's what these guys take is they have to improvise, make the system work, because the system sure doesn't work for them.
Jeff Huckins is the general manager of Woodland Tractor.
Oh, you got to admire this guy. You have to admire what he's done in 4 years, and you got to look at the style of farming. You have to look at what he's done. He's achieved quite a bit.
Miroslav gets little government help. Credit in the Ukraine now runs over 100% a year, so he has to pay cash or barter for everything. He also recently visited the United States to learn more about our farming techniques. And UC Davis graduates now help him here to plan for the future.
What I've sensed is he feels like it's only going to get better. And he's well positioned. He and some of his friends that are also taking advantage, in that are leasing land and trying to get bigger and develop economies of scale here, that when it does take off, he's going to be ready.
We left Miroslav a few tokens of our visit and took home the unmistakable feeling that entrepreneurs like he will never let the Ukraine slip back into communism. In the cities, the standard of living is now rising. People can own their own homes and apartments. The American flag flew over City Hall to welcome us. And in a way, this was a homecoming for me.
I first came to the Soviet Union back in the early 1970s, a young reporter shooting film and making a documentary about communism. So I was interested to come back to one of these Eastern Bloc nations to find out what had changed. You know what has changed? There's not a sign of communism now.
When the statues of Russian leaders came down in 1991, this monument to free speech and freedom went up. Children not born in the communist days are taught what that oppression was like. Today in the Ukraine, police are on the streets, not to spy on tourists, but instead to direct traffic. And everywhere you look, old buildings are being refurbished, brightened up. In just 8 years, the Ukraine has become a world economy where you can now buy cassettes from Japan and bananas from Panama. We found this store well-stocked with American clothing.
Here's a pretty average pair of American-made jeans. Price here is $156 of the local currency, which is about $51, $52 American. Pretty comparable to the price we pay at home.
What impressed me most, though, is how well these people have adapted to a life after communism.
Here's another big change. Making a phone call out of the former Soviet Union was next to impossible. Today, here in the Ukraine, they have phone cards with a computer chip on the back. Plug it in, dial away.
Sacramentan Tracy Rogello is one of our National Guard soldiers who came here on this peace mission.
Probably the biggest thing I'm getting is an appreciation for our own country. I think when you step back and go someplace else, then you can look back at yourself and your own people and see it more clearly.
But not all the wounds of communism have healed. I ran into a Ukrainian television crew who told me there is still some government censorship here.
There are topics that I don't write about purposely, because I know that whatever I write will not be printed or will not be in the air.
Tomorrow on my special assignments, I'll take you to a Ukrainian school to meet the faces that might change the world. In the Ukraine, John Iender, KOVR 13 News. 13 News.
Today, one of the biggest businesses in Ukraine is Coca-Cola. Coke recently built a huge bottling plant there that employs hundreds of Ukrainians.
These days, the language that you hear in some Northern California classrooms isn't English, it's Ukrainian. More and more immigrants are coming here from the former Soviet Republic. Sacramento educators have just returned from a peace mission to Ukraine. Our special assignment reporter, John Iender, went along on that trip, and tonight he takes a close-up look at how the fall of communism has given Ukrainian kids new freedoms.
A rock concert going full blast, laser light and smoke, and thousands of kids letting off steam. But this isn't Arco Arena. It's a stage in what used to be the Soviet Republic of the Ukraine. An expression of freedom like this 8 years ago would have been unthinkable. The state police never would have allowed it. Today, these free citizens enjoy satellite television. You haven't lived until you've watched Ninja Turtles speaking Ukrainian.
If you're happy and
These kids don't remember communism.
if you're happy and you're not.
Today, English is a required language for every Ukrainian student, and the American influence is prized.
Today, our children have prepared a performance for you.
Every parent wants their student to learn English and to be taught by an American teacher, so there's a demand for it.
These Sacramento educators have come to the Ukraine on a National Guard-sponsored peace mission.
Each one of our students helped us put together a friendship quilt from school to school.
Elizabeth Joy from Eureka Elementary School helped organize this friendship program. As a teacher herself, she was impressed how well prepared these young Ukrainians are at such a young age.
The students in the schools we visited spoke 2 or 3 languages, and they had a better idea of the countries around the world than our students do in the United States. So I'm definitely going to do a more global approach when I get back home.
I found these Ukrainian students easy to talk to. Their English was a lot better than my Ukrainian.
I'd like to go to America to study or to live.
I'd like to be an artist because I like to draw very much.
America, in my mind, it is a very interesting country, and to know about USA from books, and I also like to watch film.
2 other surprises at school. The sport of choice here isn't European soccer, it's American basketball.
Bravo.
And each student here has to learn to march and take military orders. The Ukraine may now be free, but it still feels the threat of communism.
You did nicely.
Jana Fields is one of the teachers on this Ukrainian visit. In Sacramento, she's the principal at Sierra View School in North Highlands. Many of her students are Ukrainian, so she was anxious to visit their schools and learn how she could help.
The only map they had of the United States was hand-drawn on a piece of canvas and attached to a backing. So we're definitely going to send them maps. We're also going to put together boxes of books. And if they get there, then we will put together more boxes of books, because their books for learning English are very, very, very outdated.
This festival celebrates the town of Lviv and its newfound freedom. That's where we met Larissa, a young entrepreneur and part owner of a brewery. She's a lady with an eye on the West.
Do you ever plan to import this Ukrainian beer into the United States?
We'd like to. We'd like to. If we have American partners interested in our beer, I think there won't be any problem.
Most Ukrainians have quickly embraced Western capitalism, but many of these senior citizens told us they miss the pensions and perks the Soviets once allowed, like free transportation. These senior citizens told us they think the new government is corrupt, that its high taxes have caused runaway inflation that has made it difficult to live.
I feel bad for people who are older because they have nothing now and they invested so much in the communist system.
The Red Star may have set here, but corruption still remains. Now it's slipped underground. Teachers told us bribes can change a student's grades, and a payoff to the right government official can get you a better job.
Gorbachev came,
I sat down with Marco and Vitali, two young college students who remember communism.
There were no human rights, no civil rights.
Yeah, no open-mindedness, no free ideas.
So how corrupt is the new Ukraine?
Mafia is powerful up there. The guys who are sitting in the parliament, they are making the bureaucracy and making money on that, and they are somehow connected with the drug dealers and weapon dealers and everything that concerns with dirty hands.
The newest commodity here is beautiful women. Thousands have reportedly been lured into jobs in the West, then sold or kidnapped into prostitution.
There have been articles and TV programs to warn women not to sell themselves, to make them aware of the problem.
On the streets, we saw no graffiti, no crime. But recently here, a Sacramento Peace Corps worker was killed by a burglar. So will the Ukraine slip back into the dark world of communism? Most everyone we talked to said no way. They won't let it. That's one reason, perhaps, this country welcomed our National Guard and the civic leaders from Northern California. And to show our appreciation, we've now invited many of our new Ukrainian friends to our area. The first are set to arrive here next month. On special assignment in the Ukraine, John Iender, KOVR 13 News.
So those youngsters John was talking to all seemed pretty sharp, didn't they? Well, here's something to consider, parents. Ukrainian students spend a lot more time in class than do America's kids. They have to go to school as well on Saturday.